Last week, I insulated the cab over with the natural wool product and then installed the plywood panels.
Perfect.
After a primer coat, I caulked all the corners for a nice clean finish. I then applied a couple finish coats of paint to both the cab over and bulkheads and got them installed.
Yeah, there we go.
Welcome back. My name's Jax, and I'm taking this Ford E350 cargo van and converting it into an RV.
Well, good morning. A little chilly, definitely sunny, and I definitely have a laundry list of projects that I'm currently working on inside and outside the van. In preparation for installing the solar and garage door, I took some time to prime and paint the strutting and the garage door rails. Installation began with installing the vertical rails at the door. The garage door rails were shortened as they were otherwise unnecessarily too long, and then I fastened them into the 2x6 header with several screws. Mounting the solar begins with laying out where the strutting is going to be mounted through the roof. I do this carefully from the inside so that I can line up the holes through the 2x2 framing. The four 10-foot struts will be fastened directly into the epoxy with 6 Easy Lock fasteners. So I started drilling the 24 oversized holes through the frames and roof. I'll taper out the holes both top and bottom so that the thickened epoxy would be super strong and resist being pulled out by the threaded insert. The thickened epoxy also serves as a watertight substrate, preventing the surrounding wood from water damage and potential rot. I'll attempt to seal off the holes with painter's tape, and I say attempt because I did have several leaks in the process. But the plan is to fill the oversized tapered holes with thickened epoxy from the top. Again, I'm using West Systems 105 epoxy with 206 slow hardener and a 404 high density filler. West Systems makes it easy to accurately dispense just the right amount of each product, as the pumps are specific to each one. So 1 pump epoxy to 1 pump hardener is pretty easy peasy. After a thorough mix, I start adding in the 404 filler until I get a thick but still pourable consistency. I'll want to pour this in slowly too, careful not to trap any air bubbles. I go from hole to hole, completely filling them up, and then it's at this point when I realize I've got a problem.
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
My painter's tape is not holding the epoxy in the hole and is dripping all over the inside of the van. After reinforcing the tape with more tape, I get back to filling the remaining holes with the epoxy and topping off those that need more. I was able to take the palm sander and sand the filled holes flush to the roof, as well as prep the roof for new paint. Now that I have all the roof all sanded and wiped down with a degreaser, I'll begin painting process with a couple good coats of exterior grade primer. With the roof now fully primed and painted, I can turn my attention to the mounting system I'm using for the solar panels. I've spent the last couple of days working on prepping and painting the roof and getting ready for mounting of the solar. Now, part of that process is the mounting of the grip strut that I have. I'm going to use to mount on top of the roof. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these easy lock fittings, and we're going to fasten the grip strut down. They're going to get set on these starboard off standoffs, so I'll be able to seal underneath really well, keep the water from penetrating that fitting, and it'll give us a little bit of elevation to keep the strut material off the roof itself, so it doesn't lay and collect and fester in water. And then from there, I've got these aluminum angles. They're 1 foot long, 2x2 angle that we're gonna affix to our solar panels. And then these are gonna set on top of the strut and get bolted down. So there'll be a low profile, low windage, pretty strong. You know, these easy lock fittings have, you know, a lot of strength. Even at a 1/4 inch size, there's a lot of pull-out strength for these. And the same thing with the method I'm going to use here. I'm going to rivet these angles onto the solar panels, and then I'm going to bolt that down to the strut. So one of the other things I want to note with the install here is that inside, I've gone through everywhere you see a piece of blue tape. There's 24 penetrations through the roof that I made, and what basically I did was I drilled all the way through the 2x4, 2x2, and you can see that there's an epoxy fill there. I tapered it both ways, so I tapered it from the top and the bottom, so it's kind of conical, opposite of a conical shape, so that it prevents it from pulling out. There's going to be, you know, wind load on here, but there's no way that that's going to pull through that 2x2 to pull that plug out. This is going to serve as a strength point, and it's also going to serve as a water resistant point, so that, you know, even if the fitting leaks, the bolt leaks a little water, that we're not going to get any rot. The 2x2 is not going to rot because I'm fastening directly into the epoxy, the thickened epoxy. So that's what those all are. So drilled 24 holes in the ceiling and the roof and taped them all up. And then I filled them all with thickened epoxy, and they got set. So those are our attachment points for the 4 grip strut. So each line is going to be a strut, and the solar panel is going to lay in between the strut material. Here I'm installing the easy lock fittings. After drilling to a specific depth into the epoxy plug, the fittings are then carefully impact threaded into the hole. I'm using butyl tape to seal the bolts both top and bottom of the starboard standoffs. Starboard is an HDPE or high density polyethylene product that's rated for high impact and high strength. It's a pretty easy product to work with. It's also weather resistant, and it's why I chose to use it in this application. Once I have all the standoffs prepped on the strut, installation begins. I'm using 1/4 inch stainless hardware to fasten the struts to the roof. Once I get all the bolts started, I tighten them up. Not too tight at first. I'll give them another turn or two over the next few days as the butyl tape starts to squeeze out. Next up, I'm installing the roof vents. After pre-drilling 4 holes from the inside, I'm able to finish cut the opening with the jigsaw from above. Butyl tape is then applied to the fan frames and then secured to the roof with stainless steel screws. The fan itself then drops into the frame and is secured with stainless steel screws as well. Well, today is going to be all about installing these guys. These are electrical glands that are going to go up on the roof. And they're going to allow me to penetrate through to bring in the electrical wiring for the solar panels. First, I'll prep the area by grinding down the bare fiberglass. Then, with thickened epoxy, I set the glands with a fillet of epoxy all around the edge. Jumping back to the roof vents, it's now time to apply some lap sealant. I'll remove the fan again to gain good access to the base, and then trim off any squeezed out butyl tape. Then I'll apply a bead of lap sealant around the entire base and atop each screw. This will ensure a weather-tight seal. We're gonna work on this aft section here, where the door and the door spring is. I got the door spring back up here to kind of look at how I'm going to finish this part of it off, and I've been sort of hacking and cutting at this little piece of 2x2 here, and I think I've got it pretty much where I want it to be. It's pretty much going to be one of those situations where I don't know, I'll have to figure out how I'm going to fasten it in here, because I can't really permanently affix this or I'll never get that spring out of here. Not like that I'm going to need to, but this will serve as a way to finish this end off and not look so mechanical. So I need to replicate this, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 more times. And then we're going to figure out how I'm going to fasten it in here. I'm likely just going to put I'll glue another 2x2 right here along this whole edge. Okay, so I didn't get any of this on camera, but a lot of fiddling. We've got the front of the box here, this tapered portion, all reframed here. I was able to get screws in 3 out of the 5, but the outside ones, there just wasn't quite enough up here. I didn't want it curved because it would just cause a whole bunch of headaches. So I ended up using a straight line all the way across here, so that, you know, this whole section will be just flat. but as you can see, the center is taller than the sides are because there's a taper. But so at any rate, this will be skinned over with the shiplap, and no one will know worse for the wear. So that section, that much of it's done. We gotta wait for the epoxy to set. That's what's holding the ends of these in. I got them screwed up towards on this side, so they shouldn't go anywhere there. Then the garage door side, which I hope I'm gonna have the clearance I need. But I've got these. This 2x2 is being epoxied in right now, and then I cut these angled mitered pieces here to accommodate, to cover up where the spring is and the mechanical part of this door, and then there'll be shiplap that's going to go shiplap that'll go up there like that. Now hopefully there's enough clearance for the door to open. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm gonna have to wait till this sets to figure out what I've got, what my options are if if they don't fit. But I just gotta, hopefully it'll work. I gotta get a piece of door in there to check it actually. So, but for right now, I'm gonna take a breather, let this epoxy do what it needs to do, and maybe grab some lunch and do some more thinking. So, but that's where I'm at. I got that much done. I feel pretty good about that, providing as long as I have the clearance on the door, I'll be real happy. But otherwise, that front section's done and the rear section's done. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be sure to check out next week's video. And if you like the content, be sure to like and subscribe.